cars in the over 2-liter class were visibly more exciting to watch. And if you were standing near the track, they really rattled your eardrums. We'll see the changes that took place in the series in 1967 right after this.
Mortgage rates are so low at LendingTree right now, you'd have to be a dummy to miss them. Oh, hey! Who put that there?
Don't be a dummy. Go save yourself a boatload of cash at LendingTree.com.
To find out what channel you can watch Fox Sports 1 on, go to foxsports1.com now.
The future of motorsports entertainment is here. Speed 2.
The more I search for my significance, seems the more I disappear. And I wonder, have I made a difference in anybody's life since I've been here? And I can hear your laughter, it's the sweetest sound I've ever known. I don't know how love happens, but I know I'm not alone. And I still have faith in you.
Devotion. Pass it on.
In 1967, the manufacturers began to realize how promising the pony car market really was in the United States, and the Trans Am series became the ideal showcase for cars such as the Mustang, the Camaro, and the Cougar. With dollars from Detroit beginning to be pumped into the series, the Trans Am suddenly became very important business.
1967 was a benchmark year for the Trans Am series. The number of events run in 1967 nearly doubled to a total of 12. Detroit's Big Three saw the opportunity to showcase their popular muscle cars and responded with dollars for car preparation and driver talent. Mercury came into 1967 with a 3-car assault, with drivers Dan Gurney, Parnelli Jones, and Ed Leslie. The cars were prepared by longtime ace stock car builder Bud Moore. Chevrolet was not officially involved in the Trans Am, yet 4 Camaro Z28s were entered for 67. 2 of those were entered by a very young Roger Penske with driver Mark Donahue. Ford's involvement centered around Carroll Shelby and his preparation of the Mustang, which continued to be one of Ford's sales leaders. Winning the Trans Am became a Ford Motorsports priority. Ford's program was led by Jerry Titus. Doc Thompson was a regular for the season as well, while Milt Minter, Ronnie Bucknam, and Jim Adams drove occasion. Chrysler added tentative support with 2 Chrysler products represented at the first race of 1967. Bob Tullius would take the season opener at Daytona. Jerry Titus won the 2nd race of the year at Sebring, while at that same race, Janet Guthrie became the first of several women to eventually race in the Trans Am. David Pearson and Peter Revson took wins on the season in their Cougars. Lincoln Mercury also hired Cale and Leroy Yarborough for one-time appearances. The 3rd event of the year would become the most closely contested finish in the history of the Trans Am. The battle would be between teammates Parnelli Jones and Dan Gurney. The winner by 3 feet was Gurney.
It was one of the most painful races I ever ran in. It was about 4.5 hours long, so a pretty doggone long time. It was 110 in the shade, and in my car particularly, it had 4 or 5 big holes in the firewall and enormous amounts of heat. I don't know if you've ever worked in front of a furnace, like a melting aluminum or something. Well, it was very similar to that. And I had done such work before, so I could withstand it pretty well. Everything was fine until 45 minutes before the race, when I ran out of water. We had a lot of water with us, and I drank and drank and drank and drank, and everything is fine. 45 minutes from the end, no water, and tremendous amounts of heat, and I was leading. So you can't stop, especially Parnelli, of course. He's the one guy you like to beat because it's not easy to do. Anyway, 3 feet was good enough, and it took me about 3 weeks to get over that. At least 3 weeks. I drank so much water you can't imagine. It was that was the most painful without hitting anything that I'd ever been in.
Surprisingly, the Green Valley win would be Gurney's only Trans Am victory. The SCCA record books still show the Gurney win as 3 feet, as timing and scoring was somewhat primitive in the early days. The 1967 Marlboro, Maryland event marked the first Trans Am win for 2 of the most historically important figures in the series, Mark Donohue and team owner Roger Penske.
Reflecting on Mark Donohue as a competitor, he was calculating, he knew when to run hard, he was consistent, he took good care of the equipment, and I think he brought a new type of driver into the marketplace, really. As you look at the Rick Mears, you look at some of the other drivers that have emerged over the last 10 or 15 years, they're more technical oriented, they run to finish, and today I think that's key. You know, as a friend, Mark was a personal friend of mine. He was dedicated to our race team. He was really the inspiration that got the whole Penske Racing organization together.
The manufacturer's title chase for the 67-02 division came down to the last race of the year at Kent in Washington State between Ford and Lincoln Mercury. Although they ran strong early, the Jones and Gurney Cougars would have mechanical troubles, and the second place earned by Ronnie Bucknam would give Ford the title for 67 by a scant 2 points. The U2 title went to Porsche, thanks in large part to the talents of Burt Everett.
In those early years, the goal was to win the manufacturer's championship. After all, there wasn't to be a driver's championship for several more years. Not surprisingly, the manufacturers were willing to pay top drivers to appear in the series to give their cars that extra advantage. The names of the drivers who've appeared in the Trans Am reads like a who's who of motorsports. And that trend continued in 1968, as we'll see in just a moment.
This is Mike. Mike's being healthy and chewing like a man with One-A-Day Vita-Craves for Men. It's a gummy multivitamin with more B vitamins, which help convert food to energy and help Mike do manly things like wrestle bears and take out the garbage. One-A-Day Vita-Craves for Men.
To find out what channel you can watch Fox Sports 1 on, go to foxsports1.com now.
The future of motorsports entertainment is here. Speed 2.
Sandy, people want to record more than one show at a time.
Yeah, that's right. The X1 platform already does that.
So let's create a multi-room DVR that allows you to record 4 shows at once while you're watching the 5th.
Done.
So if I want to watch House of Lies, record 4 other shows, including Planet Earth, especially the one with those little penguins, and then get recos based on the shows I've recorded, I gotta be able to do that, Sandy.
The X1 does all that.
Are these the programmers? Hey, guys,
you can do
I need you to work on a Cheeto command.
Introducing the X1 platform, your entertainment operating system, only from Xfinity.
Imagine what you'd see if every child had a book to read. So the mission is for us to get a book to each and every child. So let's join hands, book people unite. Unearth hidden passion. Come on, we'll have a good time. One book could be the funniest battle thing. Helps to change a life. People unite.
Read to a child today and spark a lifetime of ambition.
Mark Donohue is to this day considered one of the great drivers of all time. He and his car owner Roger Penske always seemed to have an edge over their competitors. Mark was a tough man, though. He was one of the first drivers to work out regularly. He may have looked chubby, but physically he was very, very fit. As Mark's teammate in 4 races of the 1968 season, I was able to see a much different side of him than the Mr. Nice Guy the press wrote about. Mark, off the track, was warm and cordial to the media and sponsors, but on the track, that was a different story. As his teammate, I got no help. The 1968 season would belong to Mark Donohue and to him alone.
Barely missing the title in 1967, Lincoln Mercury did not return in 1968. However, a new car appeared in the 68 series which would have quite an impact on the Trans Am, the red, white, and blue AMC Javelin. 1968 would be the year which would forever immortalize Mark Donohue's name in the Trans Am record books. At Sebring, Warbonnet, Lime Rock, Mid-Ohio, Bridgehampton, Meadowdale, Mont Tremblant, and Briar, Mark Donohue in the shining Sunoco blue Penske-prepared Camaro dominated. Mustang pilots included Jerry Titus, Ronnie Bucknam, Peter Revson, Sam Posey, Bob Tullius, and Horst Queck in '68. Ford managed 3 wins, 2 with Titus, Daytona, and later in the season at Watkins Glen, and at Kent, where Horst Queck in a rare 0-2 appearance brought home the factory Mustang first. 1968 marked the entrance of the Pontiac Firebird into the Trans Am series. The Trans Am name, of course, originated in 1966, when the then SCCA Executive Director, John Bishop, had the foresight to copyright such names as the Can-Am and Trans Am. Other SCCA board members scoffed at this at the time, but were mighty grateful when the $5 royalty for every Pontiac Firebird Trans Am manufactured rolled into SCCA coffers. All in all, the Donahue-Penske 1968 Trans Am season remains the one most dominated by a single driver team in the history of the series. The 8 wins in a row are still the most for a single driver in one season. Donahue's wins propelled Chevrolet to the over 2-liter manufacturer's title with 90 points over Ford with 59 and AMC with 51. Overshadowed by the Donahue reign was the under 2-liter action. Porsche scored 90 points on the year to win the manufacturer's under 2 division, helped along with wins by Burt Everett, Tony Adamowicz, and Fred Baker.
In just a few moments, we'll take you back to the 1969 Trans Am racing season, and we'll take you up close and inside this superb 69 Shelby Mustang.
This is our Autobahn, our formula track, our oval. They can have the asphalt. We'll take everything else. Only off-road with the Gator that's right for you. See them in action at johndeere.com/Gator. Hurry in to get $500 off select Gator utility vehicles at your John Deere dealer.
The more I search for my significance, seems the more I disappear. And I wonder, have I made a difference in anybody's life since I've been here? I can hear your laughter, it's the sweetest sound I've ever known. I don't know how love happens, but I know I'm not alone. And I still have faith in you.
Devotion. Pass it on.
The early Trans Am series was a veritable foundry for stories of men pushing themselves and their machines to incredible limits to win. Let me tell you a story of mine. It involves this car. It was in May 1969. Peter Revson, the regular driver of this car, had qualified for Indianapolis, and I was asked to substitute for him at the Lime Rock Trans Am. I got the pole, but on the last lap of warm-up, the seat broke, and I was forced to start the race with a spare seat that didn't fit me at all. I got an early lead and hung on to it as my back pain increased steadily to the point where I could barely even think straight. With 20 laps to go, Swede Savage was catching me, and I feared he would get by and win. Suddenly, he cut a tire and had to pit. Phew, I thought, I'm okay now. Then I lost a cylinder and had to nurse the car through 4 desperate laps before I won. When I went to get out of the car, I realized my legs were almost paralyzed. I couldn't walk. That was my toughest win, but it was not uncommon in those days for Trans Am wins to come at very high prices. As you can see, this 1969 car looks a lot more like the production version upon which it's based than does its 1995 counterpart. But I can assure you that these early Trans Am cars were pure racing machines. The lengths and expenditures that teams would go to in preparing the cars to win were enormous. Watch closely and you'll see this very car a few times as we look now at the Trans Am of 1969.
While 1968 was a game of musical chairs between drivers and teams, 1969 was the first season where solid alliances were struck and fans could count on seeing their favorite drivers inside their favorite cars. Parnelli Jones re-entered the Trans Am series with a strong Mustang effort from Bud Moore's shop. George Fulmer teamed with Parnelli for the year, forming a formidable challenge to Donahue and Penske. 2 Carroll Shelby-prepared Mustangs were entered for Peter Revson and Horst Queck. Jerry Titus, now with his own team, ran Pontiac Firebirds for himself, Milt Minter, and Craig Fisher. AMC was back with the Javelins, and drivers John Martin and newcomer Ron Grable. The defending champion Penske Camaro team had a Z28 entered for Mark Donohue and a second car for Ron Bucknam. One of the biggest changes for 1969 was the departure of John Bishop as executive director of the SCCA. His leaving initiated numerous SCCA personnel changes. Nonetheless, for Trans Am racing fans, 1969 was far more exciting than the Donohue procession of the preceding year. The 69 title chase was awesome. The Detroit elite put heavy pressure on the teams to deliver championship results.
69, 70, and 71, we had basically 4 or 5 manufacturers competing. And at that time, they brought in the big guns, the hired guns, if you will. Parnelli, myself, Revson, Donahue, Jerry Titus, the list goes on, but these fellows were brought in to win. I mean, we were paid to win, and if we didn't win, it came down to us, well, why didn't you win? Well, if we didn't have a good excuse, we might not be driving next race. So you had to make every opportunity you could muster out of the race to try to get a good finishing or win. And at that time, it was pro racing. It was really the first, I think, the first real SCCA's effort in pro racing. They had the Can-Am and they'd had the USRC, but when the Trans Am really got going, we had Dodge and Plymouth and Ford and Chevrolet and American Motors all competing with the slogan, you know, win on Sunday and sell on Monday. Well, it was a fact that the marketing put a lot of pressure on us.
The pressure often manifested itself in some of the most creative sportsmanship and ingenious stretching of the rules imaginable.
Well, a couple of things that I remember specifically. One was when we ran the vinyl top on the 68 or 69 Camaro, and people thought it was being used for aerodynamic benefits. It really was being used because we had dipped the car and the roof was so light you could see all the dents in it, so that was kind of a joke when they thought we were using it for aerodynamic purposes. Probably the other time, which was the most fun, was at San Javite when we were trying to fuel from a 30-foot fuel tank, and we set that up on a race morning, and people couldn't believe what we were doing because we could get the gravity of 30 feet in the air with our fuel tank, and that created quite a bit of excitement. So those things kind of were a laugh.
Parnelli Jones would take 2 wins for Ford early in the year. Ronnie Bucknam would take 2 wins for Penske on the year as well. George Fulmer took his first ever Trans Am win at Bridgehampton. Not until mid-season would Mark Donohue log his first victory of the year. Once on track, Donohue won the next 4 in a row and 6 of the final 7 races. Donohue's Sears Point win would clinch the maker's title for Chevrolet. The 1969 under 2-liter division was totally dominated by Porsche. 11 wins and 81 points to Alfa's 28 points.
The pressure to win races would intensify even more for 1970. And as we'll see, this pressure forced some desperate and spectacular performances.
In one day, your home for NASCAR will be Fox Sports 1.
Awesome! That's what I'm talking about.
Fox Sports 1, America's new sports network.
All right, guys, let's huddle up here and talk probiotics. For digestive health? Yes, and did you know that True Biotics is a daily probiotic that helps in 2 ways? It supports digestive and immune health by working in your gut, where 70% of your immune system lives. Try True Biotics today.
To find out what channel you can watch Fox Sports 1 on, go to foxsports1.com now.
The future of motorsports entertainment is here. Speed 2.
The more I search for my significance, seems the more I disappear. And I wonder, have I made a difference in anybody's life since I've been here? But I can hear your laughter. It's the sweetest sound I've ever known. I don't know how love happens, but I know I'm not alone. And I still have faith in you.
Devotion. Pass it on.
1970 Trans Am season had it all. Major investments from Detroit's Big Three in American Motors, most of the great American drivers, Jones, Donahue, Gurney, Fulmer, Revson, Swede Savage, Jim Hall. I was there too, running a full season that year with Chrysler backing. 1970 was a classic.
Maker and team alignments changed for 1970, with Penske switching to the AMC Javelin car.
Up the hill. Feels good to get some fresh air. Just barely hit 7,500. On the brakes. Let's see if I can come out of here 7,200. Seven down, 7,100. Not so good. Down the front straight. Motor seems to be a little lazy. It isn't revving up as fast.
In 1970, the American Motors program came about with my relationship with Bill McNeely, who at that point was head of marketing for American Motors. They thought that this would be a great way to show off their cars. We were looking for, as an opportunity to take the expertise, because we were not a factory team at that point with Chevrolet. And with American Motors willing to commit, it gave us the opportunity to grow our base. We brought in Don Cox, who was an engineer from Chevrolet. We were able to execute a new program and be successful. So it was one of the really the great experiences that I had, taking really a car that was an underdog and making it into a winner.
Penske's driver lineup, Mark Donahue, of course, and Peter Revson. Chevrolet supported Jim Hall with the new model Camaro. Chrysler plunged into the Trans Am series with 2 Plymouth Barracudas for Gurney and Savage, and a Dodge Challenger piloted by Sam Posey. Jerry Titus, still running his own team Firebirds, focused only on his own racing effort in 1970. Bud Moore fielded a strong 2-car effort for Parnelli Jones and George Fulmer, despite Ford's cutting racing budgets by 3/4. Competition was intense, and the lengths the teams would go to get that extra advantage were remarkable.
I remember how the teams could outfox our technical inspectors almost every day of the week. Some of it would be as comical as the Dickens in retrospect, but the leader coming in, for example, for his last fuel stop, and the crew member dumping a 10-gallon can full of lead shot into the gasoline tank so the car would weigh enough at the end of the series, and shot bags found after the race, you know, or put in during the last pit stop and that kind of thing.
Jones and Fulmer dominated the early part of the season. Early on, the Javelins had teething problems, but by mid-season, the renowned Penske preparation paid off. In fact, only 2 races on the entire year were not won by Bud Moore or Roger Penske-prepared machines. Milt Minter would take Donnybrook, and Vic Elford, driving for Jim Hall in the Camaro, would take Watkins Glen. Donahue would win at Bridgehampton, Road America, and Mont Tremblant. Tragedy struck at Road America as the Trans Am Series suffered its first major loss. During practice on Saturday morning, Jerry Titus crashed into the bridge abutment in Thunder Valley, suffering serious injury. One of the Trans Am's greatest drivers, Titus, died 17 days later. With a second place at Watkins Glen, Donahue would keep AMC's title hopes alive. It was not to be for AMC, however, as Ford clinched the title at Seattle. With Parnelli's first place and Fulmer's 4th, the manufacturer's title went to Ford, its 3rd in the Trans Am. With the Trans Am manufacturer's title in the bag for Ford, the Trans Am Circus wound its way to the last event of the season at Riverside. The venerable Southern California road course would be the site of several most interesting stories.
Well, that race was very special to me, not because we won the championship. I mean, the championship for a driver didn't mean a great deal then. It was more of a manufacturer's championship than anything. But what made me feel so good about that particular race, I was the fastest qualifier, and I took off leading the race, and I built up a fair lead, and I started lapping the slower cars, and when I did, one of them run into the other one and knocked him sideways as I was going by, and the guy T-boned me, knocked me off the racetrack. I went down behind the crash wall in turn 9, way down there, tore my spoiler off. I turned around, I came back up out on the course, and I read something the other day where I dropped back to 9th, and the car was all caved in. The car wouldn't turn now. I mean, because it wanted to understeer because of the spoiler not being on the front. And it was the worst place. It was turn 2 at Riverside, and they had some curbing on the inside. And so I'd hit this curbing to try to get the car up on 2 wheels, you know, to get the inside wheel off so it would turn. And I've literally seen pictures of the car going through this corner with the tires at least 2 or 3 feet off the ground. And I was doing that on purpose to make it turn. But anyway, I come back up and caught George Fulmer was leading the race then, my teammate. And I had a real battle with him because we were really, I just couldn't quite get by him. Anyway, he finally missed a shift and I got by him or something and won the race. And I've always thought, you know, looking back at certain races and stuff, I've always felt that that's one of the best races, if I'd have to say that I drove.
Also on that sunny day in 1970, Dan Gurney announced his retirement from racing. In the nearly ignored under 2-liter division, the manufacturer's title went to Alfa Romeo, taking 8 wins on the season and 81 points. Alfa's wins came at the hands of 4 different drivers: Horst Queck, Bert Everett, Lee Midgley, and Gaston Andre. In a move that shocked the racing world, Ford in November 1970 announced a total withdrawal from motorsports. Chrysler followed. Dodge and Plymouth dropped their Trans Am efforts, having been less than successful in their only full factory effort the previous year. Jim Hall focused his efforts elsewhere after his first full Trans Am season. Having relied almost exclusively on manufacturer support, the Trans Am series was facing a major crisis.
Many things about the Trans Am were to change over the next decade. And when we return, we'll witness the near ruin of the series.
Nice car. Not so nice scratch. Wouldn't it be nice if removing ugly scratches from your car was this easy? Now with new Finish Scratch Doctor, removing surface scratches is easy. In fact, independent laboratory tests have proven Scratch Doctor to be the best scratch remover available. Scratch Doctor with advanced microtechnology also removes paint scrapes, scuffs, haze, and swirl marks. So get Scratch Doctor.
#1 rated Scratch Doctor, available at O'Reilly Auto, Walgreens, Pep Boys, Target, AutoZone, Walmart, and other leading stores.
So has anybody actually started saving for college yet?
Oh, not me.
No, you got time.
Oh, no, we
actually
started. Yeah, but how did you even know where to start?
Oh, I found out about the Gerber Life College Plan.
Call now and get started with free information on the Gerber Life College Plan.
Oh, it's a life insurance policy, too.
Oh, that's different.
It's pretty much where I agree.
No matter what happens, we get guaranteed safe growth.
We've got to get started.
Call 1-800-308-6822 for your free information.
They served with pride and honor.
Army National Guard.
United States Marine for 5 years.
I'm an Army veteran.
They are experienced, disciplined, dedicated, and skilled.
Their job while in uniform is to get the job done. Don't you want someone like that on your payroll?
Risking their lives was just part of the mission. Now it's our mission to get them back to work. And we can all help. Visit hiringourheroes.org.
The years 1971 to 1979 were not good ones for the SCCA's Trans Am series. Some of the greatest road racers of the era, drivers like Al Holbert, Bob Wallach, Hurley Haywood, and Ludwig Heimrath, would run in the Trans Am, but the sweeping, almost reckless way in which the rules were changed from year to year, coupled with the weak purses and the energy crisis, all combined to nearly destroy this once shining American spectacle.
The 1971 Trans Am series was to be a runaway for Mark Donohue. Donohue and his red, white, and Sunoco Blue Javelin, a car whose consumer sales volume could largely be credited to Trans Am exposure, cruised to 7 wins on the year, including 6 straight. Donohue also won his first official Drivers' Championship. With 29 wins over 5 years, Donohue remains the most successful Trans Am driver in the series history.
I've always credited myself of making him a better driver, because as I started racing with him, I could see him progressively getting better, you know. So I always thought that, in other words, we'd go out and practice and I'd set quick time, for an example, and then Mark would come out and beat my time, and then I'd go back out, and I could see I was pushing him to make him a better race driver. Not that I was teaching him how to be a better race driver. He was doing that on his own, but the fact that he was having to push and push harder and harder. But he was very talented. He had very good equipment. He was a very good engineer. And he knew how to put it all together, and with the backing of Roger and Roger's help, I mean, they were tough.
The under 2-liter class was transformed into a new series in 1971 called the 2.5 Challenge. The Alphas, BMWs, and Datsuns ruled a series that never really caught on. The series ran for 2 years, with both titles going to Datsun with the help of John Morton. The withdrawal of the manufacturer support, low purses, inconsistency of SCCA sanctioning and personnel, and the state of the nation's economy and the automotive industry, the pony car market in particular, all joined in 1972 to put the Trans Am series on the verge of many troubled years to come. Roy Woods had purchased Roger Penske's Javelin program and hired George Fulmer as his #1 driver. Fulmer's 4 wins would earn him the driver's title and help AMC to another Makers Championship. Adding to SCCA's woes, John Bishop, the former SCCA executive director, had successfully launched the International Motorsports Association. In response to the problems facing the series, SCCA made a major rules revision that allowed FIA Groups 1, 2, 3, and 4 touring and grand touring machines to run alongside SCCA sedan Class A and B cars. What had been the classic American pony car road racing series now took on a totally new look. A total of only 9 races were run in 73 and 74. The 73 and 74 titles went to Peter Gregg in a Porsche. Chevrolet took the manufacturer's title in 73 thanks to 2 wins by John Greenwood. Porsche took their first, albeit relatively meaningless, Manufacturers' Cup in the big car class in 74. In 1975, more rules revisions were enacted, restructuring the series into a single-class affair based on SCCA Club Racing A, B, and C production and A sedan cars. The events were also shortened to 100-mile sprints. The Corvettes dominated the 75 season with 6 out of 7 wins. John Greenwood took the title with 3 wins, and Chevy took another manufacturer's title, their 4th. 1976 brought the 3rd major rules revisions in 4 years. This time, SCCA returned to a 2-class program with a Category 1 and Category 2 classification. The 2-category system remained in effect through 1979. One name, that of George Fulmer, returned to the Trans Am from its glory days to win the 76 championship. Porsche would easily win the manufacturer's title in Category 2, a feat they would repeat in 1977. With 2 wins and 2 seconds in his Javelin, Giacomo Giacomo slipped into the Category 1 Drivers' Championship for 1976. The controversial 1977 Category 2 driver's title went to Ludwig Heimrath after a win by Peter Gregg at Mosport was taken away. Both the 77 and 78 Category 1 driver's titles went to one of the great names in the Trans Am, Bob Tullius, in 2 dominating performances in a Jaguar XJS. In Category 2, Greg Pickett broke through with 4 wins and consistently high finishes for the 78 driver's title. 2 other wins by Tuck Thomas and Jerry Hansen helped Chevy to yet another Manufacturer's Cup. 1979 saw a dominant performance in the Category 2 division. John Paul Sr. in a Porsche 935 won 6 of the 9 races held, garnered 169 points, and helped Porsche to yet another Manufacturer's Championship. Bob Tullius, finishing second to Gene Bathello in Category 1 for 1979, would win the only 3 races he entered that year and push his career consecutive win streak to 10, a Trans Am record.
The rules changes, which occurred throughout the 1970s, forever changed the Trans Am series from a production-based sedan series in which modifications were few to a sophisticated racing program where the cars were purpose-built racing machines. In our next segment, you'll see how the SCCA's new rules package brought back manufacturers, brought in sponsors, and brought out the fans.
The more I search for my significance, seems the more I disappear. And I wonder, have I made a difference in anybody's life since I've been here? But I can hear your laughter, it's the sweetest sound I've ever known. I don't know how love happens, but I know I'm not alone. And I do have faith in you. And after all this time, some Sometimes I see the truth, and I'm touched by your innocence, and now I'm not confused. 'Cause you give me your love, the one thing I can't lose. You believed in me. And I still have faith in you.
Devotion. Pass it on.
Whereas the 1970s saw the near destruction of the Trans Am, the 1980s represented a remarkable resurgence. The requirement for the cars to look stock, set forth by the SCCA in 1980, rekindled the interest of the manufacturers. And some of the driving performances of the early 80s brought back memories of the great days of the Trans Am.
At the end of 1979, SCCA would announce the new rules package for 1980. Category 2 was dropped, and the Category 1 cars became the basis of the revamped series. In 1980, however, the Trans Am was dominated by a driver quite familiar to the series, John Bauer.
In 1981, Eppie Weitz would take the championship over Bob Tullius, who would record 3 wins on the year and push his career win total in the series to 21, second only to Mark Donohue.
The 1982 season in Trans Am featured many of the best and brightest in American road racing. Competition among the drivers really began to heat up. In fact, the average margin of victory for the series champion, Elliott Forbes Robinson, was a scant 5.5 seconds. EFR also helped Pontiac to their first ever Trans Am manufacturer's title. The 12 events run in 1983 were the most since 1969. The Budweiser Trans Am Series sponsorship offered a much-needed boost in prize money and visibility. Budweiser was also involved in sponsoring what became one of the most dominant teams in Trans Am since the Penske-Donahue team of 1968. With the help of the Diatley team, Chevrolet vaulted to its 9th Makers' Cup. The 1984 series featured a record 16 events. The defending champion Diatley team would switch to the untested and, as it turned out, uncompetitive Corvettes in '84. To make matters worse for the Diatley team, the first race of the year was marked by a controversial incident involving Diatley's driver Willie T. Ribbs and rookie Bob Lobenberg.
In the warm-up, he and Bob Lobenberg had a bit of a run-in. Bob Lobenberg was driving the Huffaker Pontiac and I was following him. And as they went down the straight, Lobenberg did screw around with Willie. You know, he sort of didn't, I don't know whether he really blocked him, but he kept on getting in the way. And Willie wanted to get by, but this was only warm-up. And then as we drew into the pits afterwards, I mean, Willie just jumped straight out of his car, ran back down the pit lane and belted Lobenberg through the window of his car, where he was just still sitting in the car. And I mean, the SCCA, they found him, didn't they? I'm sure they found him. Anyway, Neil Diatley and John Dick took Willie aside and remonstrated with him, you know, to tell him to, you know, you just can't do that sort of thing, you know, even if he was irritating. And I had said, you know, well, Bob Lobenberg did irritate him, there's no doubt about it. I didn't see the blow because I was still sitting in my car, but I mean, old Willie just jumped straight out. This all happened behind me, you know? And I said, yeah, Bob Lobenberg did sort of ask for it in a way because he had screwed him around a bit, but you still shouldn't get out of the car and go popping people, especially just on the warm-up. This isn't a race or anything. And Willie was incredibly personally abusive and rude to John Dick. I mean, excessively so. And left, and of course Ford picked him up just like that because he was obviously a quick driver. And they were all crowing to us about how they would show us, you know, and then about a year and a half later, because he left Ford under the similar sort of circumstances.
The green flag hadn't even dropped for 1984, and one of the series' top contenders was out. Ribbs quit the team on the spot, and the SCCA fined Ribbs $1,000 for his actions. Willie T. had always attracted a lot of attention, much of it controversial.
What they say doesn't matter. What they think doesn't matter, and it doesn't count. They were competitors. I was winning, and maybe they weren't. Maybe they felt a little bit bad about it. I was having fun, and I was trying to make the series entertaining for the fans and for those sponsors who were involved. I was not doing anything that put their lives in jeopardy, or I wasn't doing anything to embarrass the sport. I think it might have been sour grapes on their part because I was doing well.
Ribbs would return for the 5th race of the season in a Jack Roush-prepared Mercury Capri. Ribbs' 4 wins for Roush, along with Greg Pickett's 4 victories and series champion Tom Gloy's 3 wins in his Gloy Sports Capri, gave makers honors to Lincoln Mercury. Gloy claimed the driver's title by the second-to-last race of the year at Green Valley's Texas Challenge. A redoubled effort for Lincoln Mercury in '85 featured the returning Gloy effort and Roush racing, with Ribbs and new driver Wally Dallenbach Jr. 1985 featured one of the most hotly contested championships in Trans Am history. Dallenbach Jr. and Ribbs traded wins race after race, taking all but 3 events that year. Ribbs would lead more laps, take more wins and more poles, but his teammate Wally Dallenbach Jr. would take the title, making Wally the youngest Trans Am champion ever at the age of 22.
Controversy, triumph, and tragedy as we look back at the late 1980s after this.
After the checkered flag falls, turn to NASCAR Victory Lane for the ultimate post-race coverage. And starting August 17th, celebrate in Victory Lane with Fox Sports 1, America's new sports network.
This is our Autobahn, our formula track, our oval. They can have the asphalt. We'll take everything else. Own the off-road with the Gator that's right for you. See them in action at johndeere.com/Gator. Hurry in to get $500 off select Gator utility vehicles at your John Deere dealer.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
One thing you can say about the Trans Am, you never have to look very far for controversy. In 1986, the championship-winning team was formed as a breakaway from Jack Roush's 1985 effort. And in 1988, the Audi Quattros brought us the unfair advantage of four-wheel drive. The late 1980s also witnessed 2 runaway championships and the sad loss of one of the best road racers of the series.
The manufacturer's title was much more fun to watch than the driver's championship in the 1986 series. Wally Dallenbach Jr. would be the first to win back-to-back driver's crown since Bob Tullius won the Category 1 class in 1977 and 1978. Surprisingly, Dallenbach's title didn't come with the defending champion Roush team, but rather behind the wheel of the Protofab team Camaro. Despite Dallenbach's runaway drivers' championship, Roush managed to put together a combined Capri-Mercure effort, garnering 6 wins with 4 different drivers, snatching the maker's title from Chevy by 9 points to give Lincoln Mercury its 3rd title in a row. With a full season of running the Mercures under their belt, the Roush team came to the '87 series as the team to beat. Scott Pruitt and Pete Halsmer would run the full season in the XR4 TIs, while Deborah Gregg, only the 4th woman to ever compete in a Trans Am, would run the Capri. Pruitt turned out to be just plain fast. Out of the 12 races in 1987, Pruitt would take 7 wins, 9 poles, and set 5 fastest race laps. At the final race of the year in St. Petersburg, Florida, tragedy struck the Trans Am for the first time in 17 years, when Jim Fitzgerald, a longtime SCCA competitor, was killed. In 1988, Audi teamed with Bob Tullius's Group 44 organization to form one of the most powerful and controversial race teams in Trans Am history. The all-wheel drive Quattros would be piloted by Hans Stuck, Hurley Haywood, and Walter Rohrl. The grumblings from other competitors regarding the unfair advantage the Audis seemed to enjoy caused the SCCA to add weight penalties to the German cars. But the Quattros just kept winning. Hans Stuck's win at Mid-Ohio would give Audi enough points to wrap up the manufacturer's title with 3 races to go, making Audi the first foreign manufacturing winner since 1979. To make Audi's season even more triumphant, Hurley Haywood would win the driver's title. Preseason predictions for the 1989 Trans Am had the aggressive Oldsmobile effort and Herb Hare taking the manufacturers' and drivers' cups, respectively. But all predictions for 1989 went out the window when a rookie to the Trans Am Series took the title. Perhaps less surprising would be that the rookie would do it in a Jack Roush-prepared Mustang.
He hired me without even knowing me. You know, he'd never met me before. He was totally relying on his scouts, more or less, that went out and looked for talent. And they came back and said I should be the guy to do the job. Jack didn't know me, and when we sat down the first time in his office, he made it very clear that the only job that I had was to win the championship for Ford. And secondary to that, if I could win the driver's championship for myself, that was okay. He said, in his estimation, we should at least win 50% of the races. I thought that was a lot to ask, you know, at that point in time, but we almost accomplished that as the year went on. He said if I didn't win the championship, you know, it'd be the first one not to for a long time, and I wouldn't be a real good guy, and so we won the championship.
Celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Ford Mustang, one of the all-time best recognized Trans Am cars, Ford had something more to cheer about with a combined 7 wins on the season and the Manufacturers' Cup to boot. In one of the tightest battles in Trans Am history, the final score would be Ford 89, Chevy 77, and Olds 75.
When we return, we'll bring you up to date on some recent Trans Am history, and we'll look at this current model Trans Am car.
Stop throwing your money away on disposable air filters. One K&N washable air filter can be cleaned every 50,000 miles and can last the life of your car. Made from cotton, a K&N washable air filter allows more airflow than disposable filters. Better airflow means better engine response. Install one in 5 minutes. Better value, better performance, and better for the environment. K&N, available where auto parts are sold.
The more I search for my significance, seems the more I disappear. And I wonder, have I made a difference in anybody's life since I've been here? I can hear your laughter, it's the sweetest sound I've ever known. I don't know how love happens, but I know I'm not alone. And I still have faith in you.
Devotion. Pass it on.
This is the 1995 Mustang prepared by Jack Roush for Tommy Kendall. The differences between it and the 1969 Mustang reflect a quarter of a century of technical development. The newer car places a greater emphasis on aerodynamics. Structurally, it makes extensive use of carbon fiber. Its engine owes its flexibility to sophisticated electronics. And finally, its tires are advanced in design, construction, and materials. We rejoin our history of the Trans Am series in 1990, the year it celebrated its 25th anniversary.
With $1.1 million in prize money up for grabs and most of 1989's top competitors returning, 1990 looked to be one of the most unpredictable seasons ever. Tommy Kendall built on his success from 1989 to set a new record for points earned in a single season and take the driver's title going away. For 1991, Scott Sharp, clearly a young rising star in American motorsports, would team with the more mature Jack Baldwin. Scott Sharp would make his mark on Trans Am history, winning the driver's title in convincing fashion. Sharp's wins would help to propel Chevy to its second straight maker's title. The 27th year of Trans Am racing will be remembered as one of the brightest seasons in its storied history. First, the series could boast for the first time since 1970 the inclusion of all 3 of the big 3 U.S. manufacturers. Chevrolet would win its unprecedented 12th Manufacturers' Championship. 1992 could claim the most winners, 8 in a single season. And then there was the championship, decided on the last turn of the last lap of the last race of the year. The battle would be between teammates Sharp and Baldwin. To win the championship, Sharp would have to take the win.
When I rode to the track that morning, I got in the car and was going to the racetrack. I said, well, when I leave the track today, I'll either be the champion or I won't. So a lot was at stake, and the whole year boiled down to one race. And the race was against my teammate, Scott Sharp. And Scott being the defending champion, and I had a very slight point lead going into the race. It was going to require a lot. Scott was doing all the right things leading up to the race. He'd set the fast lap, he put it on the pole. He had demonstrated that he wasn't going to give up easy, and he was doing all the things, and I was really proud of him for the position he was taking. I didn't expect it to be easy, and it certainly wasn't, but it was a race. They say it was the most competitive race in the 25-year history of Trans Am. It was a 6-7 car train, bumper-to-bumper train the entire race. You know, I was fortunate enough to finish right where I needed to finish to beat Scott, and I won the championship. It's a race I'll never forget.
Scott Sharp would rebound in '93, taking his second championship, making him one of only a handful of drivers to win more than one Trans Am driver's title. Along the way, Sharp earned 9 pole positions and moved himself ahead of Mark Donohue as the all-time career leader in poles won with 26. Sharp would help Chevy to its 4th Maker's title in a row. 5 former champions returned in 1994 to battle for driver's points. Scott Pruitt, Dorsey Schrader, Jack Baldwin, Tommy Kendall, and Greg Pickett all had top finishes, and between them won 9 of the 13 races. Scott Pruitt would come out on top in a Chevy Camaro. However, Ford would snap Chevrolet's manufacturer's streak in convincing fashion. Chevy would reverse roles with Ford in 1995 and take their 14th manufacturer's title. But it would be a Ford Mustang Cobra that would bring Tom Kendall his 2nd driver's championship. Kendall would win with consistency, not victories. In fact, Kendall would win only once in the year, edging Ron Fellows, who finished in the runner-up spot for the 3rd year in a row. Adverse weather conditions would affect a number of events in a year that saw incredibly close racing. The average season-long margin of victory was a mere 3.019 seconds. The close racing would continue in 1996. So would frustration for Ron Fellows, who would finish 3rd in points this year despite 4 wins. In a year where tire selection won or lost many races, Tom Kendall would rebound from an up-and-down early half of the season to win his 2nd driver's title in a row and a career 3rd, a new official Trans Am record. The series visited 3 new tracks, Homestead in Florida and temporary street circuits, Dallas and Reno, and saw 1 new winner, Jamie Gallus. Kendall's championship effort was helped along by team orders, allowing him to pass teammate Boris Said late in a number of races. Former champion and team owner Tom Gloy got back behind the wheel in Reno to help his driver Dorsey Schrader. But Schrader would DNF, and Kendall would finish well up in the field to clinch the championship. Certainly, much has changed throughout the history of the Trans Am Series. Yet the Trans Am Series has come full circle in many respects. No one will argue that the glory days of the series weren't something special. They were. You'll never again witness battles between such great drivers as Jones, Fulmer, Gurney, Donohue, and Revson in cars that were so close to the cars you drive on the street. Trans Am competition right now offers some of the closest, most competitive, most exciting road racing in the world. Where it goes from here is anyone's guess. But one thing's for sure. 30 years from today, we'll look back on the 1996 Trans Am Series and say, those were the days.
We hope you have enjoyed revisiting the glory days of the Trans Am and the equally exciting recent championship showdowns. Trans Am is the oldest continuously running road racing series in North America. As long as the competition remains as hotly contested as it has been of late, I think we'll see the series continue to be one of America's great racing shows. For Speedvision, I'm Sam Posey.